This is the Khoodeelaar television channel being broadcast on the internet under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo Manifesto editions on Friday, 6th of September 2024. This is 1951 hours GMT, and I'm in the Prince Regent Lane, not far from the spot where this is the time when I would be feeding the baby kitten ones, the black and white one, the grey one, and the Shuri look baby one. Something that I've been prevented from doing for the last just over a month by the criminals controlling this evilly named, wrongly named Joy Foundation, based at 8387 Prince Regent Lane, London E13, 8RP. The Rupert Murdoch controlled Times newspaper of 31st of August 2024 carried a piece inside page, a piece featuring a picture of Helen MacDonald with baby angel Geronimo, in which piece Helen MacDonald repeated her claim, or as in effect her plea, to the UK government, whatever is the frontier. This time, frontier Keir Starmer, who in 2021 had backed the ruling for the murder of the innocent baby angel Geronimo, ruling by the criminal stooge sitting as a High Court judge on the 29th of July 2021. I have written a letter to the Times, but so far it appears that the Times criminals are refusing to publish this on political grounds. Political meaning that what I have said in that letter is the absolute truth. Nobody else is saying it. Nobody else will ever say it. The Times today, that is Friday, the 6th of September 2024, carries a main editorial. Usually has three editorial comments. And the first one is making inquiries, is about the Grenfell Tower. Because the report was published, so-called final report was published on the so-called inquiry on the Wednesday this week. And for the first time, the Times newspaper, any media organ in Britain, has actually come anywhere near acknowledging what I've been saying for years. On all major issues, if it were possible, contextually, to give a collective description, label of what I've been doing in terms of what the philosopher Aristotle and Socrates did. I am updating because the entirety of the Western moral vacuum and emptiness is exposed in this ritual that the British institutions, British government, British parliament, British media actually indulge in whenever there is a so-called scandal. That is to set up an inquiry. How fast they produce a retired High Court judge is absolutely stunning, as they did with Macpherson when they wanted an excuse and a diversion from the outraged shock expressed following the murder by a gang of racists in Eltham in East London, in South London, of Stephen Lawrence in April 1993. Well, that one was not followed immediately because the regime at the time was a conservative one, and it was years before the 1997 landslide fronted by Labour Party at the expense of Tony Blair, at the expense of the Labour Party and democracy. And the Blair fronted regime appointed McPherson, I think. But this one remains subject to fact checking. With the Scarman inquiry about the so called Brixton and Bristol so called riots of 1981, these are judges, either most of them are retired judges. And with the media inquiry fronted by Brian Levison, born and brought up in Merseyside, Brian Levison, High Court judge, was appointed to chair the Levison inquiry about the media. After Rupert Murdoch's media, especially the news of this cruise, was found to have breached the sanctity and personal data of the murdered Millie Dowler, the teenage girl that was murdered by a criminal, and the news of the world and the scum and others hacked her telephone and abused her private messages. After she was murdered, that outrage was too much. So the Cameron fronted Conservative government appointed Brian May to chair the Levison inquiry. Brian Levison. Whatever the speed, whatever the actual time between the particular event or the scandal or the disaster, the pattern is this that a mainly retired High Court judge is appointed to Supreme Court. Now it's Supreme Court because the House of Peers, used to be called the Judicial Committee of the House of Peers, is now known as the separately installed Supreme Court. So Leslie Scarman was the fronter of the inquiry into Brixton and Bristol so-called riots in 1981. Whatever the difference between the time and the actual announcement and the appointment, the pattern is that this is a High Court judge, a retired court judge, and the outcome is intended to be a whitewash, diversion, delay, as even Stephen Glover, who is a right-wing commentator on the Daily Mail, has admitted that the Grenfell after the disaster, as they say, disaster, has wasted 7 years, taken away 7 years from the actual urgency for prosecuting the criminals responsible for the what we call the Grenfell massacre, but they call it Grenfell disaster. It's beginning to rain, so I'm going to see if I have an umbrella. looks like I've got a ramshackle umbrella. So the Scarman inquiry was probably, in 1981 context, the of that time the most overhyped, over promoted public inquiry. And the phrase that occurs in all these findings, all these reports, the phrase that I have focused on is these findings are collectively described as damning report. Damn, D-A-M-N-I-N-G. Damning who? Damning to what avail? What is the actual physical or moral kind of lesson? There is nothing. It's damning report. It's kind of dance that they go to, the indulge in. Kind of national British dance routine, the indulgent. It's like a merry-go-round. The chair of the chairs, they kind of change. Public inquiries. And for years now, I have been the only one of the Aristotle, Socratian updater, saying that these public inquiries are the public lies decorated by giving or a recently retired former High Court judge, or that will be the case in the future, retired Supreme Court judge, but the court didn't exist before. But it is now in existence. So there will be, by definition, retired Supreme Court judges. So Stephen Glover condemns the Grenfell inquiry, accusing it of delaying by 6 years. So one of the bereaved persons who lost 6 members of his family in the fire, in the massacre, says there's a joke. The inquiry has been a joke, which is putting it kindly, mildly. Now, the Times in editorial, making inquiries, says that the only people who benefit from these inquiries are the lawyers. Now, because the Times is not publishing my letters, there is a limit to which I can actually put up with their idiocies. So I have not sent a letter today, but essentially they are echoing me, nobody else. No commentator, no academic, no parliamentarian, no minister, no judges said that the inquiries are a sham, they're a disgrace, because they actually benefit lawyers. Now, my point would be that there should be an inquiry into lawyers, inquiry into lawyers' role in these inquiries, which I shall be elaborating on. Now, I'm broadcasting from the street in Prince Regent Lane. It's drizzling like last night. And I haven't seen the baby kitten ones, the grey one, black and white one, and the Shuri-like one, Shuri-look one. When I say Shuri-look, this is the one that looks like the baby kitten Shuri one. And it must be a boy, he must, well, if it's a girl, I can't be sure because I've not been able to observe from near enough proximity to be able to determine the gender of this kitten. But let's say this is a boy or a girl, but it's a young one. That is to say, it cannot be more than 1 year, 2 years old at most. So, what happens when the food is, or what happened when the food was laid in front of it? He would not, or she would not go straight for the food. He or she would make an assessment as to whether the food itself was a possible live thing, challenging the kitten. So the kitten would go around and target it, examine, scrutinize its possible movements, and see if it was going to pose a threat. As soon as it became satisfied that it wasn't a threat, it would gently approach the food and do the eating. As for the baby angel one, black and white one, the black and white one would be very hungry, so he would go for the food. The grey one is a bit less busy, but was equally interested in the food. Now, the criminal who is a criminal who is lodged in the what is called porter cabin, aka the office. That shit bag actually has been standing in the way, stopping me from reaching the spot where the baby kittens would be fed. Now, I can only لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. May God give the baby kitten ones the strength, the safety, the security, the protection, and the sustainability to overcome the denial of food, overcome the problems of hunger that they are experiencing because of the evilnesses denying them of the food this time of the evening. This time I approximately say between 2100 hours British Standard Time, which is current relationship is 20 hours GMT, and 23 is midnight British Standard Time. Because they haven't got a home that is identifiable place, wherever they exist during the day, they leave that place in the evening so that there is less activity generally around. So they have an environment that is less disturbed by the criminals, parasites that exist there and collaborate and collude with the criminals in control of the evilly, wrongly named Joy Foundation. So I say, La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minaz zalimin. May God give them sustenance, these baby kitten ones. And may God make them aware on my part that I am so sorry. I cannot express my regret and my inability at being unable to physically remove these obstructions and reach them with their gourmet pouches, food that they love. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minaz zalimin. When the criminal, sitting as a High Court judge on the 29th of July 2021 in the High Court in London, called Griffiths, when he published his so-called ruling, which must have been written in advance, he referred to his previous sitter as the stooge for the depraved DEFRA department, Murray J. And he quoted Murray as saying that it doesn't matter, it didn't matter. Even if baby Angel Geronimo was allowed a third test, and even if that test was conclusive and it produced the result that baby Angel Geronimo was not infected with bovine tuberculosis, within quotation marks, within brackets, or infected with anything else. Murray said that the Secretary of State was still entitled to ignore all of that and persist in giving the order for the baby Angel Geronimo to be murdered. Slaughtered was the word. Now, the editorial in the Times today, Friday, the 6th of September 2024, ends with the essential statement that all this making inquiries, the public inquiries in Britain, appear to benefit only one category of people, lawyers. Now, these are all lawyers. High Court judges are lawyers. And the people appearing on behalf of the depraved DEFRA are lawyers. And I think that there is a time now which has been reached for the lawyers to be held to account. How on earth did this criminal Murray and his co-criminal Griffiths, in the same London High Court, sitting separately, of course, work out that the main purpose of the judiciary was to give legitimacy to the plot to murder innocent? We shall be updating on all of these in due course, of course. Going back to the water, on the 14th of June 2017, when the Grenfell Tower was aflame, anyone looking at the picture of the landscape will see that the tower is very, very clearly situated architecturally. There is no other building within hundreds of yards on any side, which means it could be physically very possible and very easy, very plausible to scramble military helicopters on the night that this massacre was taking place and to pour the water in plentiful quantities on the burning building and thus save most of the people that otherwise perished. The decision not to do that was the decision to cause this massacre. Again, we shall be updating on all of these. Back to Bangladesh and the question that is being posed around Sheikh Hasina by so-called commentators. The questions include this one: is she going to be extradited to Bangladesh from India to stand trial? Now, by the trial is meant the various crimes against humanity that Sheikh Hasina has committed, and many of the criminals' crimes that she has been already charged with. Now, even if she does get extradited, it will not be a process that will be happening in a hurry. And secondly, the role of the lawyers would be reversed. For example, she would be kind of described as having done what she did on advice and all the other rubbish. Sheikh Hasina is accused of having ordered the murder of innocent patriotic Bangladeshi soldiers in what is known as the Pilkhana massacre of patriotic Bangladeshi soldiers. This one actually has got traction. It has got the most emotional attachment to people who have commented and observed this. And Sheikh Hasina has been accused even before she so-called left on the 5th of August 2024. She was accused of being a traitor and a murderess even when she was in power. And there were books and books and books and comments and articles surreptitiously or secretly published, many of them, listing various crimes that Hasina, according to those who wrote these, committed while she was in power, and even committed before she got into power because of the secret cabals that she was surrounded by. And the decision by her to order the massacre of the protesters against the completely corrupt quota system, that decision was stupid in the most obvious way. But the fact that she called the people who were demanding the scrapping of the quota collaborators, which is the English translation of the Bangladeshi politicized word Razakar, was astonishingly ill advised because the original word Razakar is aid, volunteer, assistant, associate, supporter, etc., etc. But this has been contaminated by people with motivation to mean traitor. That is not the case because most of the people who were recruited by the then Pakistan military, dominated by West Pakistanis, were recruited under duress. That they were under orders by the Pakistan military during 1974 to act as aides and supporters. So everything they did was under orders, with very small number of exceptional small number of cases where it has been revealed after the country became recognized with effect from 16th of December 1971. There are some individuals, very small number of individuals, actually retaliated, took revenge action under cover of the military against people that they didn't like themselves, their rivals. But their numbers were very small. But this has been extrapolated by supporters of Sikh Mujib and Sikh Hasina afterwards as being the majority, as being the norm, which is never the case. And so the word Razakar has become totally abused and shorn of its original meaning and substance. So when Sheikh Hasina used that same word Razakar against the protesters. What she was expecting was solidarity by her armies of criminals who she expected to echo her venomous, contemptuous, hateful incitement. The universally understood concept of the rule of law, due process, impartiality, neutrality of the civil service is actually sunk in the confusion that she created by abusing the powers and the forces of the state against opponents that were legitimately making objections based on the evidence. We shall be continuing to update on all of these in due course. This is 2022 hours GMT, 21:22 hours time on India. 6th of September 2024. Ending this one, 31 minutes 48 seconds long.